What's up, everyone? It's Q from Retro Q Gaming. And just before I get into this video real quick, I just want to say, as you can see here, I've gone back and started playing Mario Kart 8 again. Because of just the Christmas rush and all, I'm just gone back to play stuff that's light and just easy to bang out a couple of games or rounds or whatever here or there. And Mario Kart is a great game for that because we all know Mario Kart is generally really fun. And it really made me notice again, because I haven't played it in a while, that despite the lack of power in the Wii U, Mario Kart still looks fantastic. That's just all I'd say. Mario Kart is it's splendid to look at, and it's a gorgeous game. So despite all this 1080p 60 FPS or consoles with stuff at max settings or whatever it is, as long as they use a great art style and great gameplay and they actually know what they're doing, that's really all that matters, because Mario Kart is living proof of that. Otherwise, everyone would be pissed off, because if I remember right, Mario Kart is 720p 30 FPS, and it's clearly a gorgeous game. So fuck that. Anyway, on to the actual reason I made this video. So strangely enough, Square Enix put up a questionnaire on their own Japanese website, and it was spotted by Gematsu, or I assume that's how you pronounce it. I've never really understood if it's Gematsu or Gematsu or whatever, but anyway, they spotted the actual survey on the Square Enix website, or the Japanese Square Enix website, I should say. And the survey, it literally just asks, from what I understand anyway, I don't read or speak Japanese, but it seems that Square Enix are asking if Persona 5 and Final Fantasy 15 came out at the same time, and you could only buy one, what one would you buy? It's a fairly strange and interesting question. A lot of people are jumping to the conclusion that Square Enix are well, what's the word? They lack the self-confidence in the game at this point, or it could be anything. I mean, let's look back when you take a look at the type of game Persona 3, 4, and what 5 will be, and what Square Enix might potentially change for a potential delay for Final Fantasy 15 to bring it akin closer to that. Let's look back to when Grand Theft Auto 5 first released on the 360 and PS3, when Hideo Kojima saw how the world reacted to such an open world like that. He delayed Metal Gear Solid 5 to make it open world, and we all know how that turned out anyway. So there is precedent for it happening already. So who knows how it could go anyway. But that's one theory on it anyway. I'm not gonna get into reading too much into it, because people are just gonna figure out what they want. They're gonna believe what they want and ever. And I'm basically asking you guys, as well as myself, which, if you could literally just buy one game of those two, of Final Fantasy 15 and Persona 5, because Persona 5 is scheduled for summer of next year. Final Fantasy 15 is just scheduled for next year at some point. Well, from what they've said, the official release date announcement will be in March, but Square Enix has a fucking retarded history with Final Fantasy 15 and release dates, so I'm going to take that with a big heaping bowl of salt. So until March comes around, we'll see. But it's scheduled for some point next year anyway, and that potentially means we could have Persona 5 and Final Fantasy 15 not just within the same year, but they could be relatively close together. So that is a very real possibility, and I think that's one of the reasons, at least anyway, why they're asking about that, because interestingly enough, there's no option for both on the survey. It's literally one or the other. There's no both. Obviously, chances are myself, as well as many of you out there, will probably buy both games anyway, because you're probably big fans of Final Fantasy, or you're probably big fans of Persona, and you're probably big fans of both. So that's one other thing that's out of the way. But the fact that they only ask for one is kind of strange. And on top of all that as well, I'm going to give my opinion on what it is. So if push I'm dying here, I'm sick as fuck, so I mean my brain is not working. But if push came to shove, and for some unknown reason I could only buy one game ever for Final Fantasy 15 or Persona 5, chances are I would buy Persona 5. So there's a reason for that, and I'll go into my reasoning now behind it as well. So let's look at Final Fantasy, okay? So I've played every main numbered Final Fantasy game. I've played 1 to 14. I've played lots of the sequels and offshoots as well. I've played I mean, where do we even stop? You know, what do we classify and all? Kingdom Hearts, I've obviously played. You know, you got the Tactics series. They're just sequels. There's other games and whatever way you want to handle it, but I've played so many of them. I've played all the ones in the main series. I played Final Fantasy 11 for over 5 years. I played Final Fantasy 14 for 2 years, only haven't quit that recently. So I've got a serious investment in the Final Fantasy franchise in general. So it's not just the main games or anything like that, but just the entire series just in general. I've got a serious investment in there, and that's been going on for like most of my life. The very first Final Fantasy game I played was Final Fantasy 7 because it was the first one released here in Europe, not including what was the Super Nintendo game. Over here it's called Mystic Quest Legend, but in America and I think Japan it was basically called Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. For marketing reasons and all, it wasn't called Final Fantasy Mystic Quest over here because we didn't have any previously, so couldn't really cash in on the name. Anyway, so Final Fantasy 7 being the first Final Fantasy game I played. Obviously, Final Fantasy 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. We'll even include 13 in there, and 14 as well. And then eventually getting around to, once they re-released them later on, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So naturally, so many of those games have massive memories and emotional ties just to some point in my life, and like many of you guys yourself, you probably have very fond memories of some of those games, and just absolutely, it's just completely tied to memories that have possibly been some of the best of your life or the best of your gaming career, whatever it is. So it obviously means a lot to some people, myself included. And even knowing all that history, what Square Enix have done, it's basically since they became Square Enix, because when you look at everything that happened, everything that's come out of Square Enix after they became Square Enix, not from being Squaresoft, but it's been downhill from what we used to have. There's still some good in there, but it's been overall downhill, if you ask me. And ever since, all the stuff they've put out, basically as their track record as Square Enix, and what I've played from the Episode Dusque 1.0 and 2.0 demo, I am very, very not looking forward to Final Fantasy 15. What I played from the 1.0 and 2.0 demo was bad enough, and then just factoring in what Square Enix, Square Enix going to Square Enix, basically. That's the best way I can say it. The kind of shit that they'll do, and the fact that it's been in development in 10 years and God knows what's going to happen at that point, that Square Enix have Square Enixed it, if you will, and it's just madness, and who knows what's going to happen there. So that's the Final Fantasy aspect of it out of the way, at least. That's my view on it, at least, anyway. So we'll move on to the Persona side of it, and why this kind of factors in why I'm looking forward to Persona so much more. So Persona 1 and 2, we'll classify just 2 as one game at the moment, because I know it was split in half, but Persona 1 and 2, because both halves, never released here in Europe back in the day. Now, Persona 1 and 2, 1 and half of 2, basically did they did get re-released a lot further down the line, but as it stood, it was just Persona 3 and Persona 4. Now, not including the series. I realize there's the regular Shin Megami Tensei series, there's all the like Devil Overclockers and all that stuff as well, but I'm just going to look at the Persona ones here at the moment anyway. So the standard Persona series games, the first one we got over here was Persona 3. I remember seeing a bit about it in magazines and stuff before it came out over here, and I was really excited to play it, but it was very, very hard to come across a copy. And when you would find one of the rare copies, even at the time when it was brand new, it was still pretty rare over here, but on top of all that, when you did find one, it was mad fucking expensive. And back then, like I was, what was that? It was nearly 10 years ago, I think. And, I was still in my late teens at that point, so I didn't have a job or anything. So I had no money, which made it even worse. And I even wanted to play it the entire time. And then I had always wanted to play Persona 4 as well, because I remember in my local GameStop, funny enough, the one I actually have a job in now, they always had one copy of Persona 4 on the PS2, and I really wanted to play it. Like every time I go in, it looked so good, and I really wanted to play it so much. But again, I didn't really have the means to get it. And what kind of compounded all that was the fact that the price of the PS2 game, Persona 5 or Persona 4 obviously, was actually, it was more expensive than brand new 360 games at the time. And the 360 was still relatively new when Persona 4 came out, at least over here. So, you know, when you're looking at a PS2 game being a new PS2 game being more expensive than new 360 games, it was like, hang on, you know, this just makes it even more outlandish. So eventually, my first actual experience with playing a Persona game was Persona 3 Portable on the PSP. So when they re-released Persona 3 on the PSP, I was all over that straight away. Anyway, I got it straight into it, and I absolutely loved it. I fell in love with the game within minutes. I could tell straight away because I knew it was a PS2 game, and the quality of role-playing games on the PS2, not just on the PS2, but on the PS2 era, what would that be, the 6th generation of consoles? Just the quality of role-playing game from the 6th gen was just so good, and I knew Persona 3 was already a PS2 game, so I had high hopes for it, and those hopes, it lived up to those hopes. It was so good. It was what I expected it to be, and I put a lot of time into it, and I absolutely loved it. And then, you know, I was on a mission to get Persona 4 at that point, but a little while after, I had found out that it was going to come to the Vita. And, well, I say a little while, but, you know, a while after. So I said, you know what, I'll probably end up getting a Vita anyway. I ended up getting a day one, but I got the Vita, and once I got Persona 4, came out in early 2013 here. It was delayed, and I know it was out 2012 and a bunch of other places, but once I finally got that in, I think it was like February of 2013, I jumped straight into Persona 4, and I just got lost in that game. I put like 80 hours into it in the first week. It was so good. That's a lot of time to put in that. I finished it within a little over the week actually, and it took me like, I think maybe 90 hours or so, because I just did so much stuff, and everything about the game is just so ridiculously good. That's all I can say. Everything about Persona 4 and Persona 4 Golden, I suppose, so good. And Atlas usually don't let me down. Not even in just the Persona series, but just in other stuff that Atlas does, the other games they put out, and the design decisions they make, and just all the stuff, pretty much everything about them, they never let me down so far. And that is something I unfortunately can't say about Square Enix anymore. So because of all that, that's why if I had to choose one of those games, I would go with Persona 5. On top of all that, you look at Persona 5 and the trailers that have been put out and the gameplay footage that's been put out, it looks so fucking good. I'm not a fan of the Final Fantasy 15 gameplay and footage that's come out, as well as the actual demo itself. Not a fan. That's just me, you know. Let me know if you think that's different. So that's basically where I'm going to leave it anyway. My personal pick out of those two is, if I had to pick one and only one to play, it would be Persona, because based on my experience and everything that I believe in, I think Persona 5 would give me much more enjoyable experience out of the entire thing. So here's where we come to the good part, because this video has gone on way too long. Let me know in the comment section below what your feelings on it are. Would you buy Final Fantasy 15? Would you buy Persona 5? Why? I want to know either one. I want to know which you do and why. You feel free to leave a huge, big, long-winded comment about your investment of the series that may influence your judgment, the reasons why you would or wouldn't. I want to know all that stuff, because it can lead to a big, great discussion. So let me know all that in the comment section below, obviously, as well as which game you'd pick and why. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Twitter, details in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the rest of the videos in my channel.